Hello and welcome to the daily newspaper analysis. Today we shall be discussing the newspaper of the 1st of February 2018. So coming to the first article, testing waters. The opinion is that we need to evolve credible and institutionalized practices to resolve interstate river disputes. Now, as obvious, this article is largely about the interstate river water disputes in India. However, it is context specifically with regards to the recent Mahanadi river water dispute, which has arisen between the states of Odisha as well as Chhattisgarh. Now, in this regard, recently the Supreme Court has directed the centre to constitute a tribunal to adjudicate this dispute. Now, the centre was previously interested in adjudicating this dispute politically through negotiations. This is something that was refuted to by the state of Odisha, and so the centre was reluctant in forming this tribunal, as a result of which Odisha went to the Supreme Court, and now the Supreme Court has directed the centre to constitute a tribunal to resolve this dispute. Now, this topic is as such very important. Interstate river water disputes has been a very pressing issue in the federal system of India. So as obvious, this topic is of utmost importance. So I shall be dealing with this topic in a bit of a detail. Coming to the background aspect, first and foremost, you need to know about the constitutional provisions with regards to interstate river water disputes. Now, this issue has been delved into by Article 262 of the Constitution, and this article says that it shall be the Parliament which by law shall make the procedure for adjudication of these disputes. And also this article specifically mentions that the Supreme Court and the High Court shall have no say in this regard, and it shall be only dependent upon the law made by the Parliament. Now, why is this blanket ban on the courts for adjudicating on this matter? This is largely because you need to understand that the matters of water are highly sensitive, and Supreme Court and High Courts are based upon rule of law, and this rule of law is largely based upon the idea of private proprietorship, which means is that either one can be right and the other has to be wrong. So in these cases of water disputes, this black and white situation is something that does not exist, and a middle way is what is required. And sometimes it may become difficult for the court to ensure this middle way, which is something that needs to be ensured through negotiation. So it is in this context that the Constitution envisaged that the courts will not be an ideal body to adjudicate in this regard, and it is a law made by the Parliament which shall ensure that interests of all the stakeholders is what is ensured, and a middle path is something that is adopted. So in this respect, the Article 262 envisaged the supremacy of Parliament. Now, under this Article 262, the government had made two rules. One was the River Boards Act of 1956. This River Boards Act is largely a developmental act. Now, what do you understand by developmental act is that this is largely focused on developing the entire river. For example, a river is passing through 2 or 3 states, and all the states want to ensure that development around this river is what should happen. So, a board will be constituted under the River Boards Act, and all the states will be participants, and they can collectively ensure the development of this entire river basin. So, that is what the River Boards Act was all about. The second act was the Interstate Water Disputes Act of 1956. This was the act which dealt with resolution of the water disputes, and as per this act, ad hoc tribunals was what was envisaged, and these tribunals would be formed if a dispute arose, and these tribunals would then give a judgment as per which the resolution of the dispute would happen. However, there are several problems associated with this act and the tribunals that are formed. For example, till now 8 tribunals have been formed and only 3 have given their judgment. And not only that, the Kaveri tribunal had not given a judgment for greater than almost 26 years. The Ravi Vyas tribunal has not given a judgment for more than 30 years. So you can see the time lag that these tribunals are taking. So it has almost made the purpose of these tribunals, it has literally resulted in these tribunals being useless. The purpose has been defeated. So that is what is the problem. And as a result of this, a number of amendments have been time and again made to this Interstate Water Dispute Act. The most recent proposed amendment was in the year 2017. The bill, Interstate River Water Dispute Amendment Bill, was first introduced and first laid down in the Lok Sabha. However, at present, the bill has not been passed in the Lok Sabha only, and both in the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, it is yet pending. So coming to some key features of this bill, this is something that is important for your analysis point of view. First is that this bill envisages a single tribunal. Now here in the previous act, there are ad hoc tribunals. There are different tribunals for different rivers. So in this, a discretion is there that whether or not the government forms a tribunal. Now this element of discretion is something that is going to be done away with the idea of a single tribunal. And this tribunal will have multiple benches. For example, a Mahanadi tribunal will be a separate bench under the single tribunal. For any other river, another bench. So that is what is envisaged, a single tribunal with multiple benches. That is the structure that is envisaged. Also, the members, previously in the tribunals, the members had no age limit. This again led to several complications because of no age limit. The tribunal members were largely interested in delaying the matters and delaying the judgment so that the tribunal could continue. Now this problem has again been done away with, and it is now envisaged that a 5-year term will be there for the chairman of this tribunal, or an age of 70 years is what is envisaged. Also, it will be a 6-member tribunal, and the 6 members will be the members of the Supreme Court or the High Court judges. So that is the structure that is envisaged. Another very important aspect that this new amendment bill proposes is the data collection system. Now you need to understand that for resolution of any river water dispute, what is the key element is data. For example, it needs to be analyzed that what is the water limit in the river, what is the surface water flow. Also, the climate change impacts on the rivers is something that has to be understood. Monsoon effects has to be understood. So for all of this, something that is required is the precise data. So this was a major loophole in the previous act where data was something that was incomplete, and as a result of which adequate judgments were not being given. Now this problem is something that has been done away with, and data is going to be provided which is going to be one of the most accurate data. So that is something that the bill envisages. Another thing is with regards to the dispute resolution committee. Now previously in the previous act of 1956, what is envisaged is that before setting up a tribunal, a proposal will be made where the center will try to negotiate between the contesting states. This provision does exist even today, but this provision is not institutionalized. This new amendment bill calls for an institutionalized mechanism of negotiations, and there will be compulsory negotiations here for a time period of 18 months. And these negotiations will take place prior to the formation of a tribunal. If these negotiations is something that is going to fail, then in the aftermath of that, a tribunal is going to be formed. So this is an institutionalized mechanism. Not only that, the state has a choice to send its own experts for discussions and negotiation. For example, the state has concerns over the environmental impact of decreasing waters in a river, then it can send an environmental expert. So this choice is something that is available to the states. So this is something that is mooted as the biggest achievement of this bill, this biggest idea of this bill. So that is something that is relevance of this. Another thing is with regards to assessors. Now the bill envisages that there will be 2 assessors who will help in data collection, who will help in guiding the judges of the tribunal, and these 2 assessors will be from the Central Water Engineering Services, and these will be experts of the rank of chief engineers, and they will be nominated by the center. So that is one thing that is envisaged. Another thing is that the decision of the tribunal will be final and binding. Now the present practice under the 1956 Act is that even if the tribunal has given its judgment, this judgment needs to be notified by the center. So what happens is that even if the tribunal has given its judgment, sometimes the center who is not happy or for political reasons, political compulsions, the center does not notify this judgment, and again there is a lag period, and it results in pending of implementation of the decisions of the tribunal. So this problem has been done away with. Now as per this newer bill, it is envisaged that as soon as the tribunal gives its judgment, immediately it will be considered notified. So this time lag is something that has been removed. Another thing is that, as I mentioned, that in the previous tribunals, it was a huge time period that they were taking for giving their judgments. There was no time limit. Now this problem has again been resolved, as there is going to be a time period of 3 years after this 18 months of negotiation. So the total time period is 4.5 years in which this entire matter has to be resolved. First will be a dispute resolution committee for 18 months, and then 3 years of time period for the tribunal. So definitely this is a step ahead. This bill has a great potential in it, and indeed the parliament should go ahead with this bill. So that is the relevance of this bill. Now coming specifically to the editorial and the issues that have been discussed in the editorial. First and foremost, you need to understand that where is the river Mahanadi? This is the river Mahanadi. It starts in the state of Chhattisgarh and it flows into Odisha and then into the Bay of Bengal. Now, what is important is for you to understand that the state of Chhattisgarh has been formed recently. It has formed in the year 2000, and in the aftermath of its formation, it has gone in for aggressive developmental projects. And in these developmental projects, is the first issue which has been analyzed is that of the industrial barrages. Now, the state of Chhattisgarh is setting up 6 industrial barrages on the river Mahanadi, and it is just before the Mahanadi flows into Odisha. This is where the Mahanadi enters Odisha. This is the Hirakud Dam here. Now, Odisha government has been complaining that because of the building of these industrial barrages, there is a reduction of 80% in the flow of Mahanadi in Odisha, and this is impacting the viability of the river in Odisha. Also, this is impacting the availability of water for the people in Odisha. So, this is the major issue between these two states. Another thing is that is important is the politicization of the issue. Now, this you need to understand that in Chhattisgarh, the government is the BJP government, the central government is the BJP government, and in Odisha, the government is the Biju Janata Dal. So, that is the government in Odisha. Now, another thing is that elections in Odisha are expected in the year 2019, and Biju Janata Dal is the ruling government in Odisha for a very long time, and so Biju Janata Dal is keen to overcome the anti-incumbency factor which is against Biju Janata Dal. So it wants to come to power again, and as a result of which it is unwilling to resolve the matter through negotiations. Also, there is an issue of trust deficit because the government in the opposing state, that is Chhattisgarh, as well as in the center is same. So Biju Janata Dal has a fear that both these governments will favor each other, and as a result of which the interest of the Odisha will be something that is sidelined. So that is another issue. So this entire complex situation is also being used by politicians to create a newer ground for fighting elections. So that is the whole political aspect of this problem, and this politicization of the issue has something that has resulted in delay in resolution of this matter. The proposal by the center that it is going to solve the matter without the formation of the tribunal through negotiation is something that has been turned down by the government of Odisha. So that is something that is important. Another thing that you need to understand is the role of center's mediation. Now, indeed, the center has an important role in mediation process, but when this act was formed in the year 1956, that time the government was largely a single party government. Not only in the center, but in majority of the states also, it was the Congress party which was in power. So at that point of time, the leaders did not envisage, they did not imagine such a situation where what will happen in this kind of a situation where the party between in the center as well as in the states will be an opposing party. Now suppose here in this case it is a regional party. Now if it was the Congress party, we all know that BJP and Congress are major rivals, major opposition parties. So in that scenario, it becomes important that the role of the center should be largely unbiased. So this is something that had not been envisaged in the previous act, and this is something that has been criticized in this particular editorial. And here he has said that a more neutral mechanism is something that should be envisaged, and it is in this regard that the dispute resolution committee idea of the mooted in amendment bill is something that will be of great help. So that is the importance, that is the analysis here. Another thing is with regards to the supremacy of the constitution over politics. Now here, indeed, the idea that has been mooted of negotiation is politically influenced. This cannot be denied. So here the author says that instead of a political mechanism, what is important is that in any situation of conflicting situation, the constitutional rules are something that should be given supremacy. So that is something that has been envisaged, that a newer amendment should be brought and constitutional rules should be made to resolve these issues. So that is the analysis here. Another thing is with regards to a dispute between a dispute which exists between there is a conflict between a dispute-centric approach as well as a developmental-centric approach. Now, what does this conflict mean is that at present, the government's focus is always largely on resolving disputes between the states with regards to river water. As a result of which the Interstate River Water Dispute Resolution Act of 1956 has been amended many times, whereas a comparison is being drawn with the River Boards Act. Now here the author says that the River Board Act has a huge potential because this is a development-centric approach. As if the River Boards Act is something that is strengthened, more and more boards are formed, then the states will participate for the developmental perspective. But this is something that has not happened. The River Board Act has not been amended even once, and the center is never keen on forming the river boards. Rather, whenever the disputes are arising, in that case, immediately tribunals are being formed. So the author is advocating that instead of forming tribunals, the focus should be on forming boards so that there is greater cooperation between states. So this is something that has been advocated, and this is indeed a good suggestion which the author has brought about. Another thing is with regards to an ecosystem for interstate cooperation and dialogue. Now, as democracy is going to deepen, the situation of different political parties in different states as well as a different party in the center is something that is going to become a common phenomenon. So it is important that an ecosystem for interstate cooperation is something that is developed. This can be done through interstate councils and other provisions of the constitution. Also, as recently we have seen in the General Council of the Niti Aayog, this has been advocated. So such ecosystem should be developed, such spirit of partnership should be developed among states to ensure that these matters are resolved amicably and they are not politicized. So that is the whole analysis of this editorial. Indeed, this topic is of utmost relevance and it can be asked in several papers. In fact, river water disputes was a question in the essay paper also in the year 2016. So that is the relevance of this topic. Now coming to the next article. Power of a single identity. Now, here you need to understand the context first and foremost. The context is that the Aadhaar Act of 2016 is being examined by the Supreme Court, and a number of articles are coming which are criticizing the Aadhaar. So this is a rare article which brings about the benefits of Aadhaar. It highlights the utility of Aadhaar. So that is what is important here. Now coming to some background, this background is largely about why Aadhaar is being criticized. First and foremost is with regards to an executive order. Now you need to understand that the Aadhaar was formed in the year 2009 after the setting up of the UIDAI, and at that point of time it was through an executive order, and an issue of Aadhaar which was of such significance, which aimed at taking personal information from the citizens, should have had some legislative backing, some parliamentary backing, and this was something that was not done. So it is often considered as a coercive act, and it is something that is considered as a means by where the parliament was bypassed. So that is one criticism against Aadhaar. Another thing is the coercive element in Aadhaar. Now, a number of times the Supreme Court has said that Aadhaar cannot be made compulsory for the citizens. Not only that, even the Aadhaar Act 2016 envisages that it is not going to be compulsory. However, the government has, through many of its schemes, made Aadhaar very, very compulsory, and it has made Aadhaar mandatory to avail social sector benefits. So in that regard, an implicit coercive element is what has been added to Aadhaar, and this is something that has been criticized by experts. Another thing is that Aadhaar Act, which came in the year of 2016, when the Aadhaar bill was laid down in the parliament in 2016, it was tagged as a money bill. So once it became a money bill, then it only required a passing in the Lok Sabha, and the Rajya Sabha was not allowed to debate on this. So this again is something that is considered as a dilution of the parliament, and it is said that this act has not been adequately examined by the parliament. So that is another criticism with regard to Aadhaar. Now the issues that the author has raised with regards to Aadhaar, let's come to those. So the first issue is with regards to a comparison with the social security number of US. Now here the author says that this idea of a social security number is similar to an Aadhaar, and in US it came way back in the year 1935. And at that point of time, it was highly criticized by the civil society in US, and it was thought that it is something that is going to lead to a surveillance state, and this is the similar criticism which Aadhaar is facing in the country. So this parallel has been drawn between the social security number and Aadhaar. But here the author says that because the social security number came in the year 1935, so a long period has passed since then, and its advantages is something that you can analyze today. So the author says that if you will see in US, social security number has been hugely successful, and it is through this number that a large number of social benefits which the US government gives to its citizens is something that a large number of people are able to receive. So an analysis should be drawn, and Aadhaar should also be given a chance. It should be implemented, and then its benefits, so that its benefits also can be received as the benefits have been received for social security number. So that is the first analysis that the author has brought about. Another analysis is with regards to a right versus left ideology. Now here the author has said that all criticism to the social security number of US was largely from the rightist groups in US. Now the rightist ideology is largely a capital centric ideology. So the author says that in US this was justified because the capitalists there felt that the government is taking a socialistic stand. If it is going to give a social security number, then indeed the government is going to give several benefits, and the capitalists never appreciate this kind of a action by the government. So it was in that regard that the rightist elements in US criticize this number. So this here is justified indeed. But what is happening in India is that the leftist ideology are the people who are criticizing the Aadhaar. Now, the leftist ideology is largely for a greater role of the government in the welfare of the citizens. For example, they favor PDS, they favor Manrega. So, despite the fact that their ideology favors a greater role of the government in welfare of the citizens, they are criticizing Aadhaar. So, this is something that the author is bringing about, is a case of hypocrisy, and this is a paradox that is there in India. So that is what has been analyzed. Another thing is that the author has mooted Aadhaar as the biggest administrative reform in the country, and he has said that Aadhaar indeed will bring administrative efficiency. We all know that the subsidy bills of the government are extremely high, and a direct benefits transfer is something that is going to be a panacea for preventing leakages and corruption in this regard. So indeed this idea is novel. This cannot be denied. A few years back, even the Economic Survey talked of something of a jam trinity, where it analyzed Aadhaar as a means to wiping every tear from every eye. So in this regard, the author said that indeed Aadhaar has huge potential and it is a huge administrative reform, and so it should be allowed to pass. So that is one analysis. Another thing is that with regards to biometrics, now here the author has brought a case where he says that often it is criticized that the social security number of the US was not a biometric analysis. However, Aadhaar is a biometric Aadhaar involves details about the biometrics of the citizens, and under Article 21 the right to bodily integrity is a fundamental right, and so citizens should not be forced to part with their biometric information. This is one criticism which Aadhaar has, but here the author justifies that biometrics is the only way to make Aadhaar efficient. Firstly, the second aspect of this is that the author says that the biometric information, a large amount of biometric information is already there with the government. For example, in the voter ID card, a number of citizens give their thumbprints. So the author is saying that it is unnecessarily being criticized and unnecessarily being blown out of proportion. And this biometric information with the government is something that is not a big deal. So that is what has been analyzed here. Another thing is with regards to the Tribune expose. This expose was a sting operation, and as per this expose, a large number of details of the Aadhaar were leaked out. So that was a major cause of concern, and this was a recent controversy. In this regard, the author has brought about a case where he says that even in the Tribune expose, it was not the biometric information which got leaked, rather it was the general information which got leaked. And even if this information got leaked, the UIDAI also gave an explanation on this and said that this information is already in the public domain. A large number of mobile companies and a number of private companies own this information. So if this information got leaked from Aadhaar, it was not something that needs to be blown out of proportion. So that is some criticism against this entire vendetta against Aadhaar is what has been given in this editorial. Another issue is with regards to the social programs in India. Now you need to understand that India has some of the largest social programs in the world. For example, Manrega is the largest in the world. The Food Security Act of India is going to be the largest food security program in the world. And not only does India have such huge programs, the leakages of these programs are also one of the biggest in the world. So indeed for India, it is of utmost importance that a mechanism is adopted where these leakages are done away with, because the programs in India by their sheer size are extremely difficult to implement. So indeed for India, it is of utmost importance that the Aadhaar project should be implemented and it should be supported by one and all. So that is one case which has been made in the favor of Aadhaar. Another thing is that of a no alternative. Here the author has said that despite the fact that everybody is criticizing Aadhaar, none of them have given an alternative to Aadhaar, and this is a major criticism which the author says. He says that until unless you do not have an alternative, how can you criticize Aadhaar? Because the problem of historical leakages within the social programs of India is something that is not new and that everybody knows about this problem. So either you give an alternative or one shouldn't criticize Aadhaar. So that is one analysis he has given. Another thing is with regards to security layers. Now here the author has said that the UIDAI has been extremely willing to increase the security layers of Aadhaar. Not only that, the UIDAI is also participating in the formation of the national privacy law. So it is saying that this unnecessarily criticism of UIDAI is something that is unwarranted. Recently, the UIDAI has also called for a virtual Aadhaar ID. So definitely when the body itself is willing to ensure more security layers, then why is this criticism against Aadhaar? So that is one analysis. Another thing is that the author has said that there is a need for a balance between a personal privacy as well as national interest, and a zero sum game is something that should not happen. It should not be that either preference should be given to personal privacy or national interest. Rather, a balance between these two objectives is what has been advocated here. So that is another analysis. Finally, the author has given an opinion that Aadhaar is vital for all government schemes and subsidies, and it is a tool to prevent money laundering and terrorism. However, this needs to be balanced with a national data privacy law which enshrines globally accepted principles of privacy and to prevent mass surveillance by the state and excessive uses of Aadhaar. So indeed, it is again mooted on the idea that Aadhaar is extremely successful in ensuring efficiency of government functioning, government programs, and indeed it should be implemented, but with certain checks through the national privacy law. So that is the final opinion. Indeed, this article is important in showing the benefits of Aadhaar for India. So that is the relevance of this particular editorial. Coming to the next article, for a clean judiciary. Now the opinion here is that the process to remove Justice Shukla shows the importance of in-house mechanism. Now, the context of this article is the recent controversy which has arisen with regards to Justice Sri Narayan Shukla. Now, coming to the background, this will make you understand that what is the controversy also. Now, you need to understand that there are a lot of medical colleges in Uttar Pradesh, and few of these medical colleges could not fulfill the regulatory requirements of the MCI, of the Medical Council of India. So the MCI had banned few of these medical colleges, and it had placed a ban order preventing them to take newer admissions into these colleges. After this ban by the MCI, these colleges went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court also supported the MCI decision, and it placed a restraint order on admissions to these medical colleges. However, this college, the GCRG Memorial Trust in Lucknow, this is a medical college, and this college went to the Allahabad High Court, where it was Justice Sri Narayan Shukla's bench, and this bench, it overrided the decision of the Supreme Court and allowed this Memorial Trust, this college, to start admissions. So it was in this respect that the decision of Justice Shukla was criticized, and in the aftermath of that, the Chief Justice of India formed a 3-judge committee to look into this matter. This 3-judge committee has now given its decision, and it has said that indeed there is a case of violation of judicial propriety, and also judicial laws have been breached by Justice Shukla, and they have suggested to the Chief Justice that indeed some malpractices have happened in this case. So after this, the Chief Justice of India directed Justice Sri Narayan Shukla to either go in for a VRS or to resign. However, Justice Shukla refused either VRS or resigning, and so now the Chief Justice of India has written to the Prime Minister to start an impeachment process against Justice Narayan Shukla on grounds of corruption and malafide. So that is the entire background of this issue. Now, what are the major issues that have been highlighted in this controversy? First and foremost is with regards to judicial values. Now, time and again, judicial values are something that are coming up. Even recently in the 4-judge conference, it came up. So, are the judicial values something that have been undermined or that are being continuously breached? That is one analysis. This is a stark case where the judge himself has been held guilty by the other judges. So, this is again an issue of fraternity in judiciary. So, those judicial values are something that are being eroded. So that is what has been analyzed. Now coming to the second issue is a case for impeachment. Now, what do you understand by this case for impeachment? Now, ideally, the Chief Justice has made this proposition to the Prime Minister that the judge should be impeached. But you should know that till now, there is no impeachment which has officially taken place by the Parliament. And even if this impeachment has to take place, the impeachment is a long process. It is a very, very cumbersome process as per the Constitution. And this impeachment requires an absolute majority by both the houses. So in this regard, what is being analyzed in this editorial is that is it is it the right time? It is the opportune time where the government should look in for some alternative ways instead of impeachment. For example, if this committee has already decided, it is an in-house committee, it has been monitored by the Chief Justice of India. If this committee has already decided that a corruption case does exist against Justice Narayan Shukla, then he should be suspended. So should there be another mechanism to impeachment to do away with the cumbersome procedure of impeachment is something that has been analyzed. Another thing is with regards to an institutional corruption. Now, not only is this corruption, institutional corruption at the behest of judiciary. Why? Because not only this case is relevant for Allahabad High Court, a number of cases regarding medical colleges is something that was been taken up by the Supreme Court itself, and number of benches have been headed by the Chief Justice himself. So, if this entire institutional corruption is coming at this in the area of medical admission, so a number of judges are who are under suspect. So that is something that is being raised here, that is it a case of an institutional corruption in judiciary? So that is one analysis. Another thing which has been highlighted, or which is very evident, that there is institutional corruption in medical admission. So this is something that should be looked into and this should be done away with. So these are two areas of corruption which have been highlighted in this case. So that is the analysis. Another thing is with regards to a long and cumbersome impeachment procedure, which I have discussed previously also, that yes, the procedure for impeachment in India is extremely long and cumbersome, and this is making the procedure ineffective in total. So indeed, the government should explore for some other mechanisms, keeping in view the safeguards to the judges. So a balance is what needs to be drawn. So that is something that has been advocated here. Another thing is with regards to the institutional integrity. Now, I have time and again in previous editorials also discussed that judiciary has huge integrity in the minds of the people. It is an institute which is the guardian of the fundamental rights of the people. So such cases when it comes against judges, and it is also an issue with the judges themselves have been convicting another judge. So in such a situation, the integrity of the institution is something that is shaken, and this has immense ramifications on the image of judiciary. So that is again an important fact. Now, the editorial is important because judiciary is going through a severe turmoil. It is going through a severe era. It is an era of criticism against judiciary. So definitely this editorial is important. It can be used as an example. So that is the relevance of this particular editorial. Now, coming to the next article, making financial savings less taxing. Now, this article is largely a very specific one. So whenever an article is very specific, its relevance in UPSC decreases. But yes, some points are important. General Studies paper 3 has a term, a syllabus aspect, which is about resource mobilization. So that is where it can have some relevance. However, a complete relevance of this article does not exist in UPSC, but still we shall be discussing it. Now, the context of this article is with regards to the taxes on savings. Here the author has made a case where she says that the tax regime on financial products is something that is distorting, and this takes away the freedom of choice from the citizen. So that is the entire context. Now, coming to the issues which have been discussed, the first issue is with regards to savings as a key priority for the government. Now, here you need to understand that the government is always keen to ensure that savings increase. Why? This is because savings are vital for the banking sector, and not only that, the government wants to ensure a mobility of finances from those who can give to those who require. This will ensure a credit and deposit balance in the country, and greater credits can then be invested for economic growth. So for the entire health of the economy, it is good that people should deposit their money so that this can be used for greater formation of capital, fixed capital formation, and greater capital formation in the economy. Whenever the citizens are not depositing their money, it is something that has been adversely impacting the economy. For example, past few years, citizens were investing more in gold rather than they were investing in bank accounts. So as a result of which, this was a major problem for the government then, and they took several steps to discourage citizens from investing in gold. So definitely savings is a key priority for the government. This is an understanding which you should have. Another thing is with regards to an issue of postponing consumption. Now you need to again understand that whenever citizens are investing, whenever they are saving, it is largely a postponement of consumption. For example, if I have 1,000 rupees I can buy something of this 1,000 rupees today, but I decide that no, I am going to invest this 1,000 rupees for 1 year, so that after 1 year I can get 1,200 rupees. So it is a postponement of consumption, but the interest will be, for postponement of consumption, the interest will be this 200 rupees that I'm getting as interest rate or for any other dividend. So if I am getting some returns on my investment, only then will I be interested in postponing my consumption, and as a result of which the interest rate or the returns on the investment is something that should be high. So that is one analysis which has been drawn. Now another issue is with regards to section 80C. Now the section 80C of the Income Tax Act is a list. It is a list of certain exempted investments. As per this list, certain items, certain areas of investment are given exemptions in income tax. For example, if I invest 1 lakh rupees in suppose I'm going to invest 1 lakh rupees in a particular equity bond, and that equity bond is under the section 80C of the Income Tax Act, then I will get a exemption of 1 lakh rupees of my income from being taxed. So that is something that the author here has analyzed, and in this regard the author says that the section 80C is creating distortions and it is manipulating the choices of the citizens. Why? Because the citizens are getting interested in getting these tax exemptions. However, this 80C is often distorting. For example, it has house tax which will get an exemption from a house loan, will get an exemption from tax. So what happens is that to avail this exemption, citizens will buy bigger houses, they will invest more money in houses, they will take greater house loans. So this is something that is distorting, and this is going to impact the choices of the citizens. So that is one analysis that has been made here. So in this regard, the editorial has advocated a solution where the author makes a case that instead of this list of certain elements in exemption, a one catch-all deduction should be something that should be emphasized. Instead of having the selection by the government, all deductions to a certain limit should be included in this one catch-all deduction, and this discrimination, this distorting activities by the government should be done away with. So that is the case that has been drawn here. Another thing is that the author has brought about a case of a bias towards property. Here the author says that there is an increased tax deduction on investing in property, and as a result of which the government is indirectly favoring that people should invest more in property, and it does not favor financial investments like in bank or the post office deposits, as they are not as much benefited as an investment in property with regards to tax exemption. So this is something that the government should do away with, because property is a fixed capital, and to ensure the idea of savings is a key priority for the government, to ensure this cycle between deposits and credits, it is vital that the government ensures that this bias towards property is something that should be done away with. So that is the case. Another thing is with regards to a capital gains tax. Now here again the author says that the capital gains tax exemption is also high for property. If one has invested in property, then this exemption from capital gains tax is going to be more as compared to one's investment in financial products. So in this respect, again the author is saying that this is something that is distorting, and this should be done away with. For example, if somebody is and there is a different rate for capital gains exemption for bonds and mutual funds. Then there is a different rate for shares and equity. Also, there is a different rate for cumulative deposits. So this is something that should not exist, and a similar capital gains tax exemption is what should be allowed. So that is what is analyzed. Another thing is that with regards to a choice between safe and risky assets for investment. Now here the author says that there are some assets which are risky assets. For example, share markets or equities. Now, the tendency in the citizens of India is that citizens in India are largely interested in investing their money in safe assets, even if these safe assets are going to give less returns. For example, if I have 2 lakh rupees or 1 lakh rupee and I want to invest this, I could either invest it in a safe asset or a risky asset. Now, even if the result in a safe asset is less as compared to the risky asset, I will have a choice for safe asset. This is largely coming from the idea that large population in India is from a lower and middle income group. So definitely they have a favoring for safer assets. However, the government is not favoring this pattern of the citizens. The government is not favoring these tendencies and these policies of the citizen. Rather, the government policy is largely about encouraging citizens to go into risky assets. So this is something that the author is criticizing, that the government should understand the behavior of the citizen And in that regard, it should make its policy rather than blanketly forcing citizens to go in for risky assets. For example, the tax exemptions that a citizen is going to get are going to be more in case of the exemptions will be more if the citizen is investing in equities as compared to his investment in simple bank deposits. Another thing is that taxes are high on interest rates and taxes are low on dividends. So this is something that should be done away with, and a similar tax rate should be both on dividend as well as on the interest rate, so that a citizen has a free choice. So that is the entire analysis of this editorial. Finally, there is a opinion that the author has given that doing away with these distortions will nudge savings behavior closer to the policy objectives of the government, which is to increase savings in the bank account. So that is the policy objective, and it will also make financial products vastly more appealing to the savers by uncomplicating the tax rule, which hamper their freedom of choice. Also, as I have mentioned previously also in several discussions, that the tax laws in this country are extremely complicated because there are exemptions in one sector and there are no exemptions. So simplification of tax laws will also be ensured if the government does away with all these distortions. So definitely in that analysis, this editorial is important, but as I mentioned before also, a specific importance of this editorial is not there in UPSC, and a direct question is rarely expected. Now coming to the questions, this is a new initiative by us. As I mentioned, that no amount of understanding is sufficient until and unless you try and attempt some question. So please try and attempt these 3 questions. You can also write these your answers in the comments section, and we shall be reviewing those. So that's about this. Before we finish, some information. We are starting a prelims batch from the 5th of February 2018, and it will be a comprehensive program for all prelims related syllabus, specially focused on the prelims of 2018. So all interested candidates, please do get in touch with us. This is our address and this is a phone number. So with this, we finish today's discussion. I thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you tomorrow. Thank you.